What if a killer wanted to be remembered more than he wanted to disappear? What if murder was only part of the plan, and fear was the real weapon? In the late 1960s, as America watched the moon landing and the counterculture movement reshaped society, a shadow moved through Northern California. He killed without warning. He taunted police and newspapers. He spoke in riddles and ciphers. And then he vanished. More than half a century later, we still don't know who he was. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer, a case that still haunts. The Zodiac Killer is not just another unsolved murder case. It is one of the most infamous mysteries in American criminal history, a puzzle built from blood, codes, and unanswered questions. Between 1968 and 1969, a self-proclaimed serial killer murdered at least 5 people in Northern California and claimed many more. But unlike most killers, the Zodiac didn't hide in the shadows. He wrote letters. He demanded attention. He turned the media into his megaphone and law enforcement into unwilling participants in his twisted game. What makes this case especially chilling is not only the brutality of the crimes, but the intelligence behind them. The Zodiac appeared methodical, calculating, and disturbingly self-aware. He wanted to be feared. He wanted to be famous. And most of all, he wanted to stay free. The story begins quietly, long before the name Zodiac meant anything to anyone. On December 20, 1968, just days before Christmas, teenagers David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen parked their car along Lake Herman Road in Benicia, California. It was a familiar lover's lane, dark and isolated. Sometime between 11:00 and 11:15 p.m. Another vehicle pulled in behind them. What happened next was swift and brutal. David Faraday was shot once in the head at close range. Betty Lou Jensen tried to run. She was shot 5 times in the back and side. The killer fled into the darkness, leaving behind no witnesses and no clear suspects. At the time, police believed it was a tragic but isolated double homicide. No one realized this was only the beginning. More than 6 months later, on July 4, 1969, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Maja were sitting in a parked car at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Fireworks cracked in the distance as Independence Day celebrations filled the sky. A car pulled up beside them, then drove away. Minutes later, it returned. A man stepped out, walked toward the vehicle, and opened fire without warning. Michael Maja was shot multiple times but survived. Darlene Ferrin was critically wounded and later died at the hospital. Less than an hour later, police received a phone call. The caller spoke calmly. He reported the shooting at Blue Rock Springs. Then he added something horrifying. He claimed responsibility for the Lake Herman Road murders as well. For the first time, the killer had spoken. And with that call, the case changed forever. In August 1969, 3 major newspapers received nearly identical letters. Each one contained part of a cryptogram made of strange symbols, along with a demand. If the papers didn't publish the ciphers on their front pages, the writer promised to kill again. The letters were signed with a symbol, a circle crossed by a vertical line, and a name: Zodiac. When the 3 cipher pieces were combined, they formed a message of 408 symbols. Amateur codebreakers eventually cracked it. The message revealed a disturbing mindset. The Zodiac claimed he enjoyed killing people, said it was more fun than hunting animals, and believed his victims would serve him as slaves in the afterlife. But the cipher ended without revealing his identity. Even as he confessed, he withheld the one thing everyone wanted most: his name. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time in broad daylight. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing near Lake Berryessa when a man approached them wearing a black hood. On the front was the Zodiac symbol. He claimed to be an escaped convict, tied them up, and then stabbed them repeatedly. Before leaving, he wrote a message on Brian Hartnell's car door, listing previous attacks and signing off with the date and method. Cecilia Shepard later died from her injuries. Brian Hartnell survived and gave police a detailed description of the attacker. Just weeks later, on October 11, 1969, the Zodiac brought his violence into the city. Taxi driver Paul Stine picked up a passenger in San Francisco. The man shot Stine in the head, took a piece of his bloodstained shirt, and walked away. Teenagers witnessed the crime and called police. Due to a miscommunication, officers were told to look for a black suspect. The real suspect, a white male, calmly walked past responding officers and disappeared. Days later, the Zodiac mailed a letter to the press containing a piece of Paul Stine's shirt, proving once again that he was always one step ahead. In the months and years that followed, letters continued to arrive. Some were threatening. Some were mocking. Some were so strange that investigators still debate whether they were genuine. The Zodiac claimed dozens of victims, though only 5 murders were ever officially confirmed. He sent new ciphers, including one made of 340 symbols that would remain unsolved for more than 50 years. With each letter, the Zodiac transformed himself from a killer into a legend. Over time, suspects emerged. The most famous was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester with an interest in weapons and codes. He lived near several crime scenes and was questioned multiple times. But handwriting analysis, fingerprints, and DNA evidence never conclusively tied him to the crimes. Other suspects came and went, each backed by theory but lacking definitive proof. In 2020, a team of private codebreakers finally solved the 340 cipher. The message suggested the Zodiac was obsessed with being feared and remembered. Once again, it revealed no identity. Despite modern DNA technology and renewed investigations, the Zodiac Killer has never been officially identified. The reason this case still haunts us is simple. The Zodiac wanted attention, and he got it. He manipulated the media, toyed with police, and turned murder into a performance. Decades later, we still say his name. We still search for answers. Somewhere, the truth exists. In a forgotten piece of evidence. A degraded DNA sample. A memory someone never thought mattered. Until that truth is uncovered, the Zodiac Killer remains exactly what he wanted to be. A mystery.